I'd like to call the Human Resources and Public Works Committee to meeting, to order.
Margaret, are you doing the roll call?
Yes. Would you like me to call roll, Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
Commissioner Moreno?
I'm here in Mount Pleasant in Isabella County at my residence.
Commissioner Swaney?
Here, attending from Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Sir, all the committee is present.
Great. I'm going to call to the public. Do we have any public today?
Not that I have been informed, sir.
Okay, then. Our first item will be consider approving the Fisher Annex lease for Deerfield Nature Park effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2021, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. I see our director of Parks and Rec, Suzanne Kaufner, is here. Could you guide us through this, please?
Sure. This is an agreement that, as you know, I come each year to renew. We've been having this agreement since 1983, so we're close to 40 years that we'll be have the ability to have this be part of Deerfield Park with this agreement with Bud Fisher. We pay his taxes each and every year. We're close to about $5,000 now for his taxes to utilize this property. And that, along with this agreement, allows us each year to have access to 160 acres in adjacent to Deerfield Park, making it part of Deerfield Park.
Really good deal, right?
I'd say so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have any questions, but nothing's changed except for the dates, for renewal of this agreement.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Swaney?
I was going to say I went through there on the Chippewa River in a canoe this weekend in the 70-degree weather, and was thinking how fortunate we were to have this part of the park annexed to us, and hopefully we're able to maintain it for another 40 years. But don't have any questions.
Okay.
So
Could we have a motion to
make a motion to move to consider bringing forward to the work session next week the approval of the Fisher Annex lease for Deerfield Nature Park effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2021.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to move the item forward to the work session and regular session of the County Commission next week. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The motion will be forwarded. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Our next item is consider approving the Region 7 Area Agency on Aging contractual agreement and other required documents for fiscal year 2021 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Jennifer Crawford, Director of COA. Guide us through this, please.
This agreement represents the second year of a 3-year agreement with Region 7 Area Agency on Aging. And the funding that we receive from this grant supplements both of our in-home services and also our nutrition program in the amount this year of $228,079, which represents approximately 20% of both of those total budgets at the Commission on Aging. So we just ask that you please support us in accepting the funding so that we can continue these wonderful programs, and that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question on the second year. Here. All set, Jen?
Okay, yeah.
All right. Make a motion move to bring it forward to the work session next week. The consider approving Region 7 Area Agency on Aging contractual agreement and other required documents for fiscal year 2021.
Support. It's been moved and supported to move the item to the regular work sessions of the County Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. The item will be forwarded. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, our next and final item is consider adopting zoning amendment 2002, which amends the Isabella County zoning ordinance map in section 28 of Rowan Township by rezoning the conditions to describe property from agricultural buffer AG3 to general agriculture AG2, and authorize the county board chairperson to sign the conditional rezoning statement conditions agreement. We have Mr. Tim report. Guide us through this, right, Tim?
Yeah, good morning. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting some feedback on my end and I'm having a hard time hearing Commissioner Moreno.
I'm having a hard time hearing Commissioner Moreno too, but we can hear you just fine, Tim.
Okay, thank
Is
you.
that better? Is that better?
Yeah,
Yes.
much.
That's perfect.
Okay, I was using a
Thank you.
headphone, kind of screwed up.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
So I'm gonna kind of back us up in this. This is a rezoning request which I brought to you previously, and we had some issues go on. So I'm going to kind of back us up and kind of walk through a little time frame here of what's going on. So back in September 10th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for a conditional rezoning request, which was moved forward with a recommendation and a vote, 5-3 vote to the County Board of Commissioners. I brought this request to you back on the 29th of September, in which we had our discussions, and it was moved forward to the county board agenda for the October 6th meeting. Between the 29th and the 25th, I was notified that a letter was submitted and sent to us dated September 25th from Mitchell Piper, an attorney from Braun and Kendrick out of Saginaw, who's representing the interested property owners being Irving and Kim Preston, which are neighbors to the request. Had some discussions with our attorney. The letter was certified. The letter met all the law requirements under MCL 125-3401. And so therefore, a hearing requested means that the board has to hold a hearing for them. On October 1st, another letter dated October 1st from Mr. Piper was submitted and sent to the board. And it was a letter expressing their opposition. So basically building their case that I believe they're going to come in front of you on the 17th at the hearing to further discuss. Friday, September 2nd, the decision was made in some consultation with Margaret to have that item obviously pulled from the agenda since we had to go through the hearing. Then on October 7th, I had some conversation with our attorney, Tim Perrone, our corporate counsel, in which we discussed the letter that was submitted from Mr. Piper dated October 1st. We found some areas that were inconsistent, that weren't quite correct. We found some areas that our attorney just doesn't flat out agree with Mr. Piper on. We went forward to your October 20th meeting, in which you guys set the public hearing for November 17th. Notices were sent out in compliance with MCL 125-3401 and 3103 out of administration. Those were sent certified. I believe the letters came back that they had received them as well. I sent to both of the attorneys a copy of that notice of the hearing to both of the attorneys. They acknowledged to me in emails that they did receive those as well. And then November 9th, yesterday, there was a letter that was submitted to the county board, and it was carboned myself, and it was from Mr. Weiss, who is representing the requester or the applicant in the conditional rezoning. And I believe he finds some of the similar contradictions or opposition to the other attorney's letter. So we're set for us here today to kind of talk about the conditional rezoning again, and then the hearing next week. The hearing next week, the way I understand it, is the hearing is going to take place earlier in the meeting, and there'll be opportunity to go through a basic hearing. I'll introduce some things. The chairman will open it up to each one of the parties, being the applicant and the interested party who submitted the initial letter. They'll get their opportunity to express their concerns and their issues to you. And then once that hearing kind of closes up and ends, down back under the HR will come back up this rezoning request 2002 for formal action by the board. So if you have any questions about getting there, I can answer those now. If not, I'll just jump in and talk about the 2002 amendment again.
Well, I just wanted to ask Tim, has this much fuss ever happened before on a conditional rezoning with lawyers on both sides and all that?
No, I've never had a formal letter submitted like this one, like the October or September 25th letter, where it was to request a hearing. We've had some examples where some sides of both parties might show up at the county board meeting work session and speak a little bit of peace. But this is the first time in my 24 years at the county that we've had a formal request like this. So no, to answer your question, this is the first time.
Wow, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say in my entire career, I've never had this happen. I've never had this type of a request either. It is unusual. So that's why Tim has done such a great job of trying to get all of the ducks in a row. And, we want to make sure that you're comfortable and you're prepared. So I just looked in your mailboxes. Neither Jessica and I were on site yesterday. So there's not a physical letter here for the commissioners. We'll sort through the mail and see if it's maybe in the mailbox here or someplace else. But if we find it, what I will probably do is contact Commissioner Green and ask him if it's okay to open it up. And if it is, then I can scan it and send it to all of you so you don't have to physically come in to read it.
I have the letter from Weiss in my email.
Oh, it got mailed to your home?
No, I have an email.
Okay.
I believe it was only sent via email, Margaret. I do not believe there was a hard copy sent.
Tim, would you forward me yours, because I don't have it in my email?
Yep. As soon as we finish up here, I'll go ahead and forward the email
Great.
over.
Thank you.
It came yesterday afternoon sometime, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I know that when I talked to that attorney, he said he was going to include me, and maybe it's hung up someplace, but I don't have it.
Okay.
I'll leave my questions until you're done.
Okay, I'll jump in then really quick and we'll walk right back through my normal staff report like I do. So this is a zoning amendment 20-02. It amends the county ordinance in section 28 of Rollin Township. It's a 20-acre parcel that's being conditionally requested to be conditionally rezoned from Ag 3 to Ag 2 with conditions. Mr. Hirschberger is the applicant. Property is located at 10297 South Wyman Road down in Blanchard. Section 1509 of the county zoning ordinance addresses conditional rezoning, lays out the criteria under state law and how we're to operate and what we're to do with regard to conditional rezoning. It further, discusses that in a conditional rezoning request, we, the county or the government entity, are not allowed to make conditions. The conditions all have to be voluntarily offered in writing, in which this was part of the application of the applicant, Mr. Hirschberger. Mr. Hirschberger is requesting, just like we had on others, to operate a sawmill. It's very similar, if not almost identical, applications to previous ones, or at least the conditions that are imposed are identical to previous ones that have been approved. Basically, what they do is they go into the Ag 3 district in which they're at. They can't do what they want to do. They find that it's in the Ag 2 district. They request under conditional rezoning to do that item and then prohibit all of those extra things that would be allowed as land uses to them in the Ag 2 district that aren't allowed in the Ag 3. So they basically turn this into an Ag 2 piece of property, but it's very similar to an Ag 3 piece of property, because the only thing that they're permitted and allowed to do would be that single item would be the milling, processing of farm products activity. The Planning Commission, as I stated earlier, seen this request on September 10th. It was a 5-3 vote to recommend approval. This is the case where we had several signatures. I think there was a total of 41 signatures. Some were in the form of a petition. Others were in the form of individual, standardized letters that people were signing, either in opposition or in favor of. We made an attempt with the Planning Commission to map those for them so they could see where these people were making their comments from. Only 22 of those that were in favor of it were able to be mapped. Doesn't mean the others were not real people. They just might have been out of the county, or they don't own land here. They're buying on a land contract, and we just couldn't track their property down. We didn't put a whole lot of effort into it because it isn't something that's important to the process. We just wanted to kind of give a visual. There was also 19 letters or signatures that were in opposition. The Township Supervisor Dan Shaw also submitted an email to us indicating that he basically supports whichever side the majority of the people in the area supported. We did a breakdown of all 41 of those signatures that we had, and we broke it down by radius of about a half mile out, how many there were, and then we did a radius of about a mile out to show how many there were, and it was pretty much a 50-50 split down the middle. Again, you know, there's not real good reason why people were in favor of it or opposed to it. It was just, we're in favor of this, we're opposed to this, more or less. The Irvings did have some things like, you know, concerned about, you know, sawdust, concerned about fire, concerned about noise, you know, a few things like that that were addressed during the hearing. But ultimately, on September 10th, the Planning Commission did go ahead and make a recommendation to be forwarded to the board for approval of the conditional rezoning as presented. That's all I have for you at this time.
Steve, do you got stuff?
Yeah, one question, I may have asked this before, but now if the property reverts back to the original owner from the land contract or is sold to someone else, how does that affect the zoning?
So the conditional rezoning contract that goes along with this, that'll be signed by the chairman of the board if this is to move forward and be approved, basically states that it stays with the land. It's still a contract in place. So if I was to own that 20 acres today, and I was to sell both Commissioners Moreno and Swaney 10 acres of each of that, you would both need to comply with the conditions that are imposed in that contract. It's a contract between the county and those property owners, or that property owner that would own that 20-acre area. And I confirmed that up with our attorney just in future sales and how that would work and everything. And there are statements in the conditional rezoning that basically say it stays right with that land regardless of ownership. Okay,
so that to simplify it for me this morning, we're just, they can continue with the sawmill, but they could not do like veterinarian service or industrial farm of other types.
Absolutely, 100% correct.
They're limited to the same condition of that is voluntarily given in the letter.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it is required by law to be recorded in the Register of Deeds office. So it's made part of the record and actually recorded. So when a property owner is looking up ownership or looking up title work and stuff like that, they're going to see this contract that implies conditions upon that land based on a land use under state law MCL 125-3401.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, you said our attorney had some, didn't agree with some of the stuff that was brought out by their.
Yeah, so where we didn't agree, I called the attorney because I had some concerns when I read the first attorney's letter. He talks a lot about a rezoning activity and just physical rezoning. Well, there's a difference. This is a conditional rezoning. And I'm not sure if he didn't catch that or if he didn't understand that or if he's just addressing this in the general terms of a rezoning request. But things like they don't agree that the milling and processing of farm products allows for a sawmill. Our attorney, we've walked through this process with them in the past, and we walked through it with them again. We don't have a definition in our zoning ordinance of a milling and processing of farm products activity, but we do have a definition of farm products. And farm products include trees and include the activity of things happening on a farm. And so we definitely, the interpretation that we've come to in the zoning ordinance is one that is reasonable and supported by our attorney. And they don't believe that that's the case. Well, our attorney is the one who, you know, kind of supports us and backs us, and he believes that that's a reasonable determination and that that's what we use. Additionally, they talk about in the first letter from Mr. Piper about all these other uses that would be allowed to be utilized. That's where we think he's missed the ball maybe a little bit with regard to the conditional, and maybe he just didn't understand that, or maybe he didn't get that information from his client. We're not sure. But the conditional rezoning itself does prohibit and the conditions in which were given up by the applicant in a letter to us prohibit all of those other things from being utilized, type of thing. So our attorney just didn't really kind of smooth things over. Didn't feel like that was where we erred in any way, or where there was problems with what the Planning Commission had looked at and done with regard to the conditional rezoning. As well, when you read Mr. Weiss's, he kind of makes those same exact arguments, I think, in his email that we made to our attorney and our attorney supports and gathered.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions or comments or from anybody?
Jim, also, one thing in the Weiss letter is that, I don't know if maybe I missed it when you went over it, Tim, mentioned that falsehood and misdirection that Andy Hirschberger's request for a mill was denied, and goes on to say that the request wasn't denied, that Andy Hirschberger withdrew his request. Is how.
Yeah, there's a. Sorry, Mr. Commissioner Swain, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, there is a little bit of a misconception with that. And it's read two different ways a little bit. But what took place there was Mr. Hirschberger, Andy Hirschberger, came in front of the Planning Commission in 2019 with a request on his 40 acres, a totally different piece of property, to establish the same sort of conditional rezoning. The Planning Commission denied that request. So they didn't deny it. They made a recommendation of a denial to the county board. Prior to it getting to the county board, they submitted a letter to us removing that from that request any longer. So it never came to you. So it was really never denied, but there was a recommendation out of the Planning Commission to make a denial at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, both parties kind of, I don't know if both parties, but the Piper, the Irvings, in their complaints to our office and their discussion with our office, they continue to bring up, the stuff that's gone on Andy's property, which is on Andy's property, which is the father, that other 40 acres. None of that is really relevant to this conditional rezoning. This is a whole nother piece of property. It's adjacent to it to the south. It happens that it happens to be the son of the father who went through a process earlier. Even if there was action and there was a denial there, this is a totally separate request. It really doesn't hold any weight or bearing on any of the issues. Much like we continue to get complaints about things happening and things going on out there, of which we're following up from an enforcement standpoint on. It really doesn't matter if there has been complaints on this in the past, or if there's been violations out there in the past. Now what we're looking at is the conditional rezoning to be able to get them to a point that, if approved, they can do the things that they want to do out there, and it be legal. So whether they've done something previous and they were sort of, had enforcement actions against them and made to stop, or gone through a process, all of that's really irrelevant. Really, the issue at hand is, are we considering, or are we going to conditionally rezone this 20-acre parcel based on the merits of the ordinance, not a complaint or what happened to somebody else or the neighbor or some other condition.
I checked my email. I did get that Weiss email too, Margaret.
Okay.
Great.
Jim, I'll check it out.
All right. Thank you very much, Tim. I don't have any further questions, Jim.
Okay. Anybody else have anything further?
No, great explanation, Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll send that right over to Margaret.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. I'll move to bring to next Tuesday's work session meeting and consider adopting the zoning amendment number 20-02, which amends the Isabella County zoning ordinance map in section 28 of Rollin Township by rezoning with conditions that describe property from agricultural buffer Ag 3 to general agricultural Ag 2, and authorize county chair to sign the conditional rezoning statement.
Support. It's been moved and supported to move the item to the regular and work session of the county commission next week. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. The motion carries and the item will be forward. Thank you. Anybody have anything else at this time? Thank you, Mr. Newport.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything else.
Okay, I'm calling to the public. Is there a public now?
No, Mr. Chairman, there is not.
Thank you. So if there's nothing more, I will adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe.
You too. Stay safe.
Stay safe.